Hi everybody, what is going on? I posted a story last night and and I'll tell you a little bit about that, but I had several people kind of reach out and comment about how that story made them feel or what it brought up for them. And I think it's really important, especially now. We're in an interesting time on planet Earth, and we're in an interesting time where we can kind of connect when we're disconnected, and really talk about these things that we are that are going on in our lives. Maybe things that we haven't talked about before, and sharing experiences in a new way. And we have all these different creative ways of reaching out to people or sharing our stories and telling our stories, and actually having them heard and seen by other people, and even people that we don't know, right? So, for example, right now, I can do this live here with you, and somebody anywhere in the world can randomly turn to it and see it, and all of a sudden they're watching, right? So we live in this interesting world where we're super disconnected because of the events that are happening, but we also have the opportunity to share our stories and have them heard all over the world or anywhere in the world, right? So I shared a story last night, and I'm in an interracial marriage, for those that know, or those that don't know. He was going out last night, and I kind of, we do this thing when he goes out without me, and it's kind of, I'm always like, be careful, because I worry about him. I worry that if he went out and was pulled over, that his risk of getting hurt or killed or not returning home, those things all enter my mind. And he's lived with that his whole life, because even when he left home when he was in high school, right, those what his parents would do, right? That's why you have the African American community speaking about how they educate their children how to de-escalate situations so that they can stay safe. And so I shared this in my story last night because I got thinking, like, we do this every time. We don't ever say the words, but it's this unspoken thing that we do between us, where we say, be careful. And he looks at me and goes, yeah, like, I'll be careful. And we do this with our kids too in another way, but there's a different level of fear being here. When we were in Canada, it was a little different. You're saying be careful for a different reason. But anyway, so I shared that in my story, and because I don't talk about that, and that is the thing that is absolutely pertinent and relates to everything that's kind of going on right now in the world, and how many of these unspoken conversations are being had because they're just these things that happen in our head up here and between two people through their hearts, that they just know that risk is there, but they don't actually talk about the risk. And so we had this moment, and I thought afterwards, like, I should share that with people. I should tell them, like, that this happens, that this is real. Like, I get to hide behind, my skin, right? Like, if I get pulled over, like, I don't have to think about those things, but I absolutely think about it anytime he walks out the door. When we first moved here, we had a tail light out. I was very nervous. It was like anxiety in my belly, worried about it, because we had a tail light out, right? Like, if it was me and I was just driving out a tail light out, I wouldn't even worry about it. It wouldn't even be a concern to me. And so these are like very real fears, or conversations that are happening, in our household, without us even having that conversation, or maybe even sharing that with our family, with our friends, with our followers, like in this scenario. And so I kind of asked a question at the end of that story where I said, what does that bring up for you? And it was like, I had some people just reach out and message me, and I had people respond to the story and just say how much sadness it brought up for them. And like, if I get like in my feels about it, I get totally sad about it too. And that's why it totally caught me off guard when I was kind of telling the story, that emotion came up, because when he goes, I don't do it. But when I talk about it at a deeper level, that's where that emotion comes from. And, I think the fact that him and I don't actually have that outward conversation is a really big indicator of how we function together in a society. Like we don't have those outward conversations. It's just an understood thing, right? It's just this understood thing that we all know is kind of the case. And so so I had people reach out and they were just like, this just brings up so much sadness. And rightfully so. It's incredibly sad that that is what we live in. But I think what's sadder is that we're not talking about it and that we're accepting it, right? So like that's happening. Those conversations are happening in households all over the country, all over the world for different reasons, right? And those conversations are unsaid things that come out as just be careful, but we're not having those conversations with our friends and telling them these are our fears. We're not having those conversations with, people that can actually make a difference in that. We're not thinking about those conversations when we're, thinking about getting active in the political process and getting active in our consumer spending, right? Like these are all ways that we wield power. We wield power with the money that we spend every day wherever we go, whether we're online, whether we're in the store or online, where we're putting our money is a vote. Actually, my good girlfriend likened it to a vote. And it's true, like where you put your consumer dollars shows where who you want to support. Where you put your votes shows like who you want to support, where you want to have that influence go. How we're sharing our voices in social media can show how, whether it's from a business perspective, but also just from a human perspective. And so it's like one of these things that we have this sadness. So then how can we really like alchemize that sadness? How can we take that sadness and turn it into something that's actually going to be useful, that's actually going to create change, that's actually going to create the world that we want to create? And so we have a world that we want to create out there in the distant future, but we create that world now. We create it every second. That every moment, me sharing this video is me creating the world that I want in the future. And if all we ever have is the moment, and we're not in the moment, and we're not thinking about these choices and how those choices support the world we want to create, then we're not actually ever going to create that world. So we experience this sadness. Heather was someone that reached out to me. She says, I struggle with that sadness then to create change. Okay, that's like exactly what I think about too. So how do we alchemize this sadness into real change? And like there's like two things, and I talk about these things pretty regularly, but how do they apply here? So presence and awareness. One, if we can cultivate deep presence and deep awareness, then in each moment we can really hold in our mind's eye the vision of the future that we want to create. And if we have in our mind's eye a vision of the future that we want to create, a world that has, joy, abundance, and freedom for all, that's what I want. I want to spread as much love and joy as possible, and I want that to be available for everyone. I want everybody to have that same experience, that their love and their joy is seen and it is heard, and that we are valuing humanity at a deep level. That's the world I want to create. So, when we're present, when we have deep presence and deep awareness in every single moment, we can hold that vision in our mind. Then it's a matter of, are we willing to take responsibility and do the work? And now there's the work of being aware and being conscious, but then there's also the work of educating ourselves of where are our consumer dollars going? What are we supporting with our finances? What are we supporting when we are, electing local officials, or when we are, participating in that process? Because if we're not participating in that process, then it's going to be really hard for us to have a voice in the world that we want to create. We can have it in this platform, but, as far as a system goes, like we are a part of the political system that makes choices and laws and bills and all of these things that create the world that we live in, right? And so the thing I think about is, and I'm all about the self-development. I love that shit. I talk about it regularly. I participate in it. I host and facilitate monthly gatherings where we talk about self-limiting beliefs and releasing them, where we set intentions, and all of that must be done by continuing to stay present and making choices in the moment. But something that really kind of slows us down is those self-limiting beliefs. Well, those self-limiting beliefs are all part of the same system we're trying to dismantle. So we live in a system in a society that is based off supremacy. I'm right, you are wrong. You're this ethnicity, I'm this ethnicity. And the powers that be thrive off that system, right? Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal, right? We have this or that mentality, and that is all part of supremacy, right? The idea of being superior. When somebody disagrees with us and has a different, opinion on something than us, how does that make us feel? If it's something like a hot button issue, like say race or racism, which, say like phobias, homophobia or something, right? Like those can be very divisive topics, right? And the thing is supremacy thrives off that shit, right? And we are participating when we get into that situation and try to make those people more wrong than us. Like that's us participating in the very same system that we don't want to be in. And so to me, when we have this experience, this deep sadness, it's like, do we go to anger and we get angry and we start blaming and shaming, or maybe we start shaming ourselves, or maybe we start blaming other people, like this is their fault, right? The thing is when we're doing that, we're participating in the very same system again. So it's like, how do we take those big feelings? How do we take all this energy that it's a lot and it's painful and it doesn't feel good, and maybe it's not necessarily happening to us, but we see it happening to others, and then but it's not us that's doing it, these other people that's doing it. Like the thing is we have to take those systems and we have to eradicate them within ourselves first. Like we have to get rid of them inside of ourselves first. So those self-limiting beliefs that we're like, I'm gonna journal these away, which is perfect. I love journaling, it's so good. Like we can't just journal them away. We can journal them away to create awareness, but then we have to realize, like, for me, my resolve is deeper than ever. Because when I realize that when I am feeling ashamed, when I am feeling unworthy, when I'm feeling that not enoughness, which if you can relate to that, raise your hand. When I am feeling those things, that is part of a system of supremacy. So instead of looking at it as those are my self-limiting beliefs, I am now seeing this as all part of a system that is meant to keep me small, is meant to keep all of us small. It is meant to divide us. It is meant to create, it is meant to divide us. We all know the saying, divide and conquer, right? Well, like these systems are in place, and when we participate in them at a level here, at a level of self, where we do that to ourselves, we do the blame, we do the shame, we do the not enoughness, we do the, I have to be perfect, I have to, when we do those things, we are participating in the same system. And so to me, that forms a powerful resolve within me, that those aren't just self-limiting beliefs anymore. Those are things that are actually holding down like people in such a massive way that, one, they're not stepping up in their fullness to show up for our brothers and sisters. Because if we want to go back in time, like if we started looking at each other like these are our brothers and sisters, right? I don't want to participate in that system. So I am letting go of those things, not because I want to live my best life, although I do. I'm letting go of those things because this is a system that holds everyone down in whatever way that looks like. It holds me down, and that I don't step up in my fullness and use my voice and love myself deeply enough that others fucking deserve too. Everybody deserves that, right? So when we feel that deep sadness, when we see these injustices, I think anger is 100% justified. Sadness is 100% justified. But then how do we take that and not go into, I'm a more right person than you. You're more wrong than I am. Like, it is the inward journey. And when we can look at ourselves and understand that all of that shit lives in us too, when we can start to unconditionally love and fully accept all of who we are, when we can start to see those things, I think we can start showing up for humanity and one another in the biggest way possible. Like, you hear these things like you have to love yourself before you love another and whatever else, but it's like a system of equality does not thrive off shame, blame, contempt, fear. Like, that doesn't feed that system. That feeds a system of supremacy. So I want to extract myself from that, and I want to use the new tools to build a new world of equality. And I have to have presence, I have to have awareness, I have to educate myself on where I'm spending my money and who I am supporting to make decisions from this place, right? From this place, not a place of fear, but a place of love, knowing that we're creating this new thing of equality moving forward. And so it is not easy. I am not the master at it, but I 100% see that my, self-limiting beliefs, which is like such a like frou-frou kind of thing to say. Maybe it's not frou-frou or fluffy, but right, it's all part of this idea of self-development. And the thing is like, no, it's just self-acceptance. We just need to self-accept. We need to let go of everything else, and then we have to move forward with that acceptance, with that love. And that is the only way that we can create a new world. Like, the old tools, like the tools of supremacy, won't do it. So that's what I have to say. It was on my heart. I know people were feeling sadness around that. I was too. But that sadness, we can use that to go inward and strengthen the resolve here, right? Like, I've never felt so much resolve in my life here, that I am creating a new world in every single moment, and that stops me from doing it. So let that pain, let that sadness, let those things go inward. It is the dark feminine that can see and hold that all, can hold all that ugly, can hold all that sinister bullshit. Like, I don't know how many rabbit holes you've been down, but I've been down a lot. And it's the dark feminine that can look, can see it, and can take it and rise with it. So that is the mission and the task that I choose to accept. I would love to hear if that's something that you are accepting and using, like taking that pain and taking it inward, not to close our heart, but to expand our heart, into this just fire, this fucking eternal flame of fire, of resolve to move forward, not in a better than, not in a less than, in a I am here, I fully accept, I fully love myself, and I want to change a new world. So you're welcome, Heather. I appreciate you and your words, and thank you for everyone that stayed on during this, if you stayed on. But that is what's on my heart, and yeah, let me know what strengthens your resolve. Like, how are you using that to create a new world? All right, that's what I got. Thanks, guys.